All right, guys, I believe we are live. So welcome for those who are watching. We've got a handful of guys in the room as well. Thank you for coming down, gentlemen. We are going to be covering Ballistics Solvers tonight. So basically, if you've got the app or don't have an app, we're going to go through each of the steps that you will see in these apps. We're going to be using a program called Geoballistics tonight, which is a really common one, really easy one to use. That's quite extremely powerful. Accuracy seems to be really good, used by quite a few of the pointy end shooters, but also reasonably simple to actually get some results with. So we're going to take you through step by step for that. So anyone watching at home, we're going to let me hit this button, and we'd already hit the button. It appears. You should see this one here that I'm going to point to, and then also a slightly larger sort of stream directly out of the phone, so you'll be able to see anything there as well. We will keep an eye on comments from time to time, so please, if you have questions, drop them into the comments on whichever platform you're watching this one through, and we will get underway. So we're running through Geoballistics, which is a free app for one rifle, but you may need to use more than that. We'll fast track through this a little bit so that we can get through. When you open the app up, you'll generally open up to this screen here. We're going to press this little button down here, and that's going to bring us through to the rifle setups. In the rifle setups, you'll see that we've got a couple of folders for larger collections. You can drop them into the various folders that you need to. Tonight we're going to add a new rifle, and we're going to put that rifle into the demo rifles. We're going to put this one in as a 6.5 Creedmoor, and this app will treat both the ammo and the gun as one profile. So some apps there, the ballistic apps, will treat it as a rifle and then ammo that you can assign to that rifle. This one here will treat one listing as a rifle with its ammo. You can then copy that, grab the data for the rifle, and change the data on the ammo as well. We will go through how to do that. So in here you'll see we've got the ability to select our bullet. So this is for, so we'll open that up. We'll go down, we'll choose our particular cartridge we're running, not 6mm Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor. And then the bullet weight on this one, we set it as a 140, and that will be a Hornady ELD, which is this one here. So notice we've got a few options for the Hornady ELD. We've got these two here. This is a G7, this is a G1, this is a multi-BC. These are different types of profiles for a ballistic, ballistic coefficient. Let me show you about that. So we have this here, which I know that those at home maybe struggle to see this one, but see the pointy end of the projectile here is a bit rounded, it's pretty straight through there, and it's a flat base. This is a G1 standard projectile. It's what originally most things were measured against when working out how slippery they would fly through the air and assigning them a number accordingly. Because when we shoot long range these days, we don't use projectiles that look like that. We use projectiles that look like this. Generally speaking, bow tail, sort of much longer, thinner, narrower type shape. This has become commonly in this type of thing the standard now. We would use a G7 standard. And so when we go to check this, because we're using a projectile that's longer, that's bow tail, much more similar to a G7 standard as to a G1, we're going to have less variation in our numbers if we use a G7 model. So that's the one we're going to choose. Now we do have a multi-BC one here listed as well. We'll come back to that. That's actually the more ideal, but we'll add those complications in later. So let's choose that G7 one there. And you will see here that has populated that data through. So we've got the size of the projectile, the weight, the length, the drag function, as we mentioned, G7 there. We've got this one here, Metro. Any guesses what that might be? I'll be very impressed if you get it. That's an atmospheric standard for where this was obtained, or how this was obtained. There's two options if we look at that. You've got ICAO, which is the, if I get this right, International Civilians Aviation Organization, or Army is the other one. The ICAO is generally the one that you'll find connected to G7 ballistics, and the Army is often used previously. It's an older model, older testing. ICAO is normally the one. If you choose a Sierra projectile, often they'll come up with Army. So it comes back to the history of how this was derived usually. And it's the standard environment factors that they applied for that testing. doesn't necessarily make a huge difference if you get that one wrong. Coming back through to the rifle here, and now we're setting up the rifle here. So sight height, as we talked about before, is the measurement between the center of the barrel through to the center of the scope. Commonly, on many of my rifles, that's going to be about 5 centimeters. Now, if we work in inches, we can change that momentarily. We'll come back to that in a moment. The zero range, really common setup is 100 meters, but obviously you can do it at whatever distance you choose to. And make sure you put that in, make sure it's accurate, and whether you're in yards or meters, you have both options. We'll get to in a second. Now, elevation offset and windage offset, these allow you to manipulate where that 0 point is on paper. We will cover that in a little bit. Really, really useful when you're using different ammo in the same gun, changing scopes over, or changing over to a thermal. Can be a really beneficial option to have, but we'll delve into it a little bit later. Barrel twist is going to make a bit of a difference to how this projectile flies, so we need to make sure that that is accurate in there. I think we're about caught up, so I'll slow it back down a little bit. Sorry for doubling up for you gentlemen. All right, the next one here is the first of the measurements that sometimes is a little hard to get. The twist rate we can usually look up on the details, or we could actually measure it with the rifle. The zero range, we can with the rangefinder work out how far away it is, or if the range is set, so be it. Sight height, we can measure that one there. All of these other details here are all predetermined by choosing the projectile. But muzzle velocity requires a chronograph to get. Does everyone have a chronograph? No, cool. So
usually on the box of ammo though?
Yes, for the test rifle that they used. Yeah. So muzzle velocity is one of the key factors that we need, along with BC, to make this work. And sometimes we don't have it. That's okay, because we can actually use this to check. We need to take an educated guess. So using the velocity printed on the box is a good start. If you're loading, you'll have some approximate information as to what your velocity is. As long as we can get somewhat close, that's a good start from there. Now, obviously, if you can put it over chronograph and get some data, that's an even better start. But don't necessarily, running this free app doesn't mean you have to go and spend $1,000 on a chronograph. You can use this to work out. That'll make sense shortly. But a lot of people get hung up on, I don't have the ability to get that. That's cool. The bullet's going to go somewhere. As long as you can work out where it's going, we can use the bullet going somewhere to tell us how fast it's doing it. All right. So let's put that muzzle velocity in for this particular rifle at 2850. All right. Now the one down from here is MV temp, muzzle velocity temp. We're going to leave that one for the moment. We will come back to it. It does play a role, but it does get pretty complicated pretty quick, and I know a lot of guys who shoot a long way don't worry about it. I'll tell you what it does, but it's about the conditions that you're shooting in will affect how fast that powder burns.
Does that affect, sorry?
Yeah.
Like if you have a parabolic crown or a different...
No, this is purely at the burn rate of the powder. So the warmer it is, the faster it burns. Yeah. We'll come back to that. So that's our rifle setup. We're now on to the optic. So in the optic section, we can choose MRAD, MOA, or inch per 100 yards for the adjustment. So if I grab a scope off the shelf here, that one is in MRAD. There's probably one over there in MOA. Whatever your optic is, you can put that into there. And if you have generally a cheaper or maybe an older scope that is actually inch per 100 yards, it's a little different to MOA, you can choose that in here as well. Might want to chat about updating your scope if you're dealing with that, but that's okay as well. So you can just choose that, you can change it on the fly as need be. Now the sight scale factor, this one here, SSF, you might have spent a whole stack of money on a scope and you dial it and it's not quite right. That's within tolerance of the scope, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. But can be disappointing if you dial 100 clicks and it only actually moves 99 of them. It happens. It's not uncommon. In fact, back when we were running training days and we were doing what's called a tall target test, it was in the minority of the scopes being accurate to that degree. So if you're shooting close in, if you're shooting 500 meters or so, that sort of thing, it doesn't make that big a difference, right? Because you're not dialing quite enough to actually see those problems come about. But there are ways to test this. So we use a tall target test to work this out. And that's basically a big long piece of paper. We used to run about 3.5 meters tall on a target. You'd put an aiming point at the bottom, you'd shoot, you'd dial, say 10 MRAD or thereabouts, shoot. This would be straight up. You can box test it, which gives you the square, but this is straight up. This is purely going vertical. And when you go up to, let's say if we were to go, that's the 30 MRAD. So we're going up 3 meters and we're coming short by about that much. We can scale that in here to adjust that each click isn't quite 1. It is 0.998. And that will actually accommodate for that variation. Is it something to worry about straight up? Definitely not, right? But that's what it is. There is a bit of a breakdown there of doing that. I actually even tell you the calculations of what it's doing. And that is something that many people do not know, that you even how good your scope is. And I've seen some of the best scopes, some of the biggest brands and the most dollars, they had a 2 or 3% variation in them. So if you know what it is, you can accommodate for it. That's the key thing. And that's where a Ballistics app will do this stuff for you. Geoballistics have these overlays. So they will put into your data a visual representation of these various overlays. We're going to break down each one of those when we come back to that. All right, they're not key as to, we don't need to put them in to get on target. That's what we're going to try and do first. I mentioned before about not knowing your muzzle velocity. This is a section here on the Ballistics apps which will have the ability to make a correction. So you say at this distance I was holding this and hitting my target. As long as everything else is entered correctly, you can adjust it here. It'll work out the variation and apply it to the formula, and it will fix it. So if you don't have your ability to get a speed with your chronograph, this is how you can reverse it backwards. It's much better than the way we used to do it, which was manually. And then you've got notes there as well. So if you want to put anything about that particular rifle or whatever the given details are. That's how we get a rifle and ammo set up in Geoballistics. It's reasonably simple. We've skipped over a couple of things, but we'll come back to. But that's enough. We've got details about the bullet, details about the rifle, details about the optic. They're the key things. We'll go back. Now, before we actually look at our results of hitting a target or not, we're going to go up to this orange gears up the top, and that's going to take us into our settings. Now in our settings, this is where we can change some of those bits and pieces about whether or not we are running centimetres or inches and other such. But from the top, there's 4 different ways this data can be displayed to you. We will go through all 4. You can choose that when you open the app, which one it opens to. So if you're a competition shooter, the comp is most likely the one that you're going to open up to. If you are long range, sort of single target shooter at any one time, the HUD is a good one to open up to. You'll work out if the other ones are relevant to what you do. Next in, we get into the preferences here, so we can auto-locate, so it can actually pick up our latitude, which is important to some of the longer, particularly the longer range things. We also have the option for how detailed our rounding gets. So if we're going to shoot, we're going hunting 200-300 meters, 400 meters, or even 500 or whatever it is, 0.1 rounding is more than fine. In fact, even further than that's probably fine. But if you want all the details available to you and all the information that you can get numbers wrong or right on, you can choose this and it will round down to 0.01. All right? Most of the time, 0.1 is going to be absolutely fine unless you're really stretching it out. Next down, we have some of the ballistic preferences. So spin drift, Coriolis effect, and crosswind jump. These are all ballistic, I'm not sure the principles of the word, these are all factors that to take into account. Spin drift is your projectile spinning a certain way and the impact that will have on its movement. Coriolis is the movement of the earth, and then crosswind jump is wind that actually has coming from the side that impacts your projectile moving up or down, rather than just left or right. These are really useful that you can turn these on and off, because for many people, they won't necessarily play a big role. Depending on the distance you're going. And it's also really good because you can use this as a tool to learn. That's one of the best things about ballistic calculators. You can, rather than spending money shooting, doing that sort of thing, you can sit on the toilet and learn a whole stack about ballistics while you're looking at your app. Playing with this, turn that off, go and see what it does. twist your firing position 90 degrees, see if it changes anything. This sort of thing is really, really useful. We've got some mobile sensors in this particular setup, so it'll pick up the angle that we're looking at and also run as a compass. We can turn them on or off depending on privacy settings if we choose to. Next one down is the increments on our chart. So when we get it's going to give us a ballistic chart at like every 50 or 5 meters, it's going to tell us what the bullet is doing. I would suggest if you're going to shoot 1,000 meters, don't have it tell you every single 5 meter increment. It ends up being a very long chart. So you can balance this out to whatever it is that you think you want to report it. Obviously every 100 meters may not be enough. You might want more detail, particularly if you're only shooting to 300. So 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. Your choice how we go with that. Distance units, yards, meters, that makes a lot of sense. Rifle profile units, so we talked about the scope height and other such things. We've got inches, we've got centimeters, and velocity, feet per second or meters per second. You can customize these all to however you interpret the data, because we do seem to use a mix of imperial and metric data when we're setting up our rifle for some strange reason. The weather unit's much the same. You can go with the imperial or metric sort of settings with, and for pressure, temperature, density, altitude, wind, whatever you're comfortable with. It's up to you. And that's it for the settings. So a few settings to go through, but nothing too strenuous. You can't really ruin anything in here, all right? You can get it wrong and put centimeters in where it says inches, but at the point where it says it, it'll tell you what it's looking for, what setup it is. So that's going to put us into, we've got some data, we've got some information, and we're going to end up in our heads-up display, HUD. Let's put in a decent distance. Right, so I've hit the enter range button. We're going to go 1,000 meters, so we actually get some data that makes some sense with a 6.5 Creedmoor. So the first thing we see there next to the U, that's how much we need to dial up. If we had to dial down, happens occasionally, depending on your zero of your gun, it would change to a D. So 8.9 MRAD to come up. Now, currently, whatever the wind is set at, nothing. We're adjusting a little bit to the left. That's most likely for spin drift, is why we're doing that. We haven't got any wind set at the moment. This is our distance we're shooting. Yep. So this is our distance we're shooting, is 1,000 meters. All right. Tells us our rifle setup. Now, this one here, this is where some people do go wrong with Geoballistics, because each ballistics app does do it differently. There's two things. The wind direction, this is where the wind is coming from, right? Subject to your location. Not where the wind's coming from, subject to you pointing down range. So what I mean is that if you're looking down range, let's say we're shooting off this way, and the wind's coming from what we could say 3 o'clock, right? That doesn't mean it's coming from 90 degrees. That means, you know, if we were wind here and we're shooting off this way, it's probably coming from about 0 degrees, because we're working everything based on a compass. Now they put some tricks into this on a phone, because what we can do here, you see down a little bit further, we've got shot direction. So let's say we set over here, we're going to shoot this way. So I'm going to press that, I'm going to press this button here, and that's going to line up and tell us that that's at 259 degrees out that way. Then I point my phone towards the wind and it's blowing that way, press the button there under wind direction, and that wind's coming from 347. Let's put some wind in so we actually get a measurement in there. So 10 mile an hour wind, if I'm shooting this way and the wind's coming from that way, it wants me to hold to the right, makes sense, we're holding this way, 1.8.
Where do you get the wind speed from? Do you have to have an app on your phone for that as well? Because I've got one, but...
There are multiple ways to get the wind speed. We'll come to that, absolutely. Let's say the wind changed, wind's coming from this way now, we point the phone at it, we press the button, that will change in a moment, that will change, now we're at 172. You see that it's changed from right to left for our adjustment. Yeah. So unlike using like a clock face or something on those lines where you're saying it's coming from this way, you literally point the phone at that and it works out against your shot direction where to aim. All right. The other thing you see here, so we can obviously manually adjust the wind speed. This is where our enter range is. The other one is shot angle, because the angle that you're shooting on has a big impact to the actual distance you've got to allow for ballistically. Imagine if you're on a high angle and you're measuring 1,000 meters. A bunch of that is your elevation, absolutely. But when we're shooting, we're only worried about gravity. So it's going to be falling anyway. So we need to, that 1,000 meters at, let's say, a much more severe angle. So it says at 2.5 now. Let's point this down and press the button. That's at minus 23. Notice now this has dropped significantly for our for how much we had. We were at 9.8 up there.
So you're calculating a full shot based on gravity.
Correct, because that's what's pushing down this projectile. So we can use this shot angle. We basically look down our phone at the target, and when we're looking at target, the phone's flat, we press the button, and that will adjust our angle to wherever it is. Useful little. So this is our heads-up display. So we've gone back to 9 and 2 off to the left. And you'll see further down here, it's got this option here. This is for a moving target. So if our target is moving, so the guys who shot PRS this year, a couple of the matches, there were moving targets. And one of them, when I showed them tonight about moving targets, they went, did not even realize, and this is the app they use, did not even realize that was in there. That would have helped. So you can put in a measurement of how fast that target is moving. You can say if it's coming left or right, and you watch if we look at that windage up here, if we change left to right, it will adjust accordingly. Because obviously sometimes the wind is actually assisting you to make up that distance, and sometimes you're fighting against the wind. Anyway, we'll take the moving target out because they're not so common to use. And in the bottom you have a little summary of your ballistic data. You've got your energy on impact, your velocity on impact, a max ordnance, and your time of flight, so how long the bullet's taking to get to where you're shooting. You also see these other overlays that we talked about. We will come back to those shortly. So this is good. We're getting some data. We've got some details about where the wind's coming from and such. But one of the other big factors in making sure that this data is accurate is the atmospherics, right? How thick the air is basically. The thinner the air, the easier this thing's going to fly through it. Thicker it is, the slower it's going to go, more resistance it's going to encounter. So this little cloud down here at the bottom, if you click on that one, you will see we've got some atmospherics here, okay? So starting with wind, you've got your wind direction, and you can enter it in manually here, or we can press this button again and the wind will change to there. You've got your wind speed, okay? This is often an estimate because you're using a Kestrel device or something along those lines, or you've been doing this long enough, you look downrange and you go, I reckon that's about 11. Taking some estimates from the things you see. The wind is one thing that's very hard to teach. You have to be out there looking at it, using it, learning it. You have a wind speed 2 here. We'll come back to that. It's a very useful tool, but we'll come back to it. Okay, in the weather side of things, we have 2 ways of entering our data. We can put in the temperature, the pressure, the relative humidity, or we can press this button over here and we go to the density altitude. Now, density altitude, I have this written down so I don't get this wrong, but it's the altitude relative to the standard atmospheric conditions, at which the air density would be equal to the indicated air density of the place of observation. What it is doing is it's comparing the conditions you're experiencing versus a standard, and on that standard it's saying, oh, it would appear that you got that what you're achieving with the data information you have at the moment is showing that on a simulation you would be at 0 degrees. 0 meters, or whatever it is. The subject to we're about 70 meters or so above sea level here, but it's going to say because of the conditions we're currently in, it's going to treat it as 0. Okay. Density altitude is an easy one because there's only one number to enter. Now you might have some options. You might have some devices, be them Kestrels, be them other things that actually give you this information and import it correctly. So you see here you can connect a weather meter, and that will either the weather flow or the Kestrel, and that'll bring all that data in. If it's got wind, it'll bring the wind information in. Or in this instance, we could select a local airport that would have a weather station with public data, and we could use that data, and that will then populate up and update accordingly to that. Now you can imagine that, well, where we are, so you guys obviously know where we are here, but for those watching, we're not that far away from the airport. It's similar, it's going to be similar conditions. There's no hills or anything between us and there. So that's relevant data. But we're not shooting here either. And so wherever we go, most of the shooting ranges are going to be in very different conditions than that. Absolutely. So often we won't use a data station that's there. Obviously tonight it works well. And particularly for wind, the wind down at the airport is probably going to be much higher than it is here. Much more the case when you're out. So you will often find at a range someone will have a Kestrel or some sort of weather station that they can put that information in for you. But it is pretty critical. If you want to know how much, Ballistic Calculator is a great way of working out how much, because you can adjust it. You can be like, oh, what if I went to the top of a mountain? You could look up what that would be. Let's say in the high country in Victoria, you go, put it in, and away you go. And that will tell you, oh, it's going to make this much difference. Can be a very useful way to do it. So that's some atmospherics. They're not necessarily overly difficult, but they make a big difference. Let's go back to our data now and see. We've had to come up an extra 2 clicks for the conditions that we're in, right? It has adjusted our windage an extra 1 for the wind that we are finding. We did change our direction, didn't we? Let's put our direction back to where it was. So it's dropped, yeah, it's changed it by 0.1. So those atmospherics from sort of neutral to current have impacted that in a different way. Possibly enough to miss, certainly depending on the size of the target, we may have missed at the top there. So a few things that changed. Let's say that we were shooting at 1,000 meters. We've put our atmospheric details in, we've put all the conditions in, everything seems like we've stacked it correctly. No matter what we do, we seem to have to go to 9.2 to hit this target. All right, everything seems to be right. So there's a good chance that muzzle velocity we had is not correct. It was a bit of a guess anyway. So we can go back to the rifle. We go into the demo rifles, we go into the 6.5 Creedmoor we're playing with, click on the buttons and we go down to edit. We scroll ourselves down to the bottom here and the muzzle velocity correction, we can say that we're at, you know what, we actually ended up at 1,001 meters on the range and just where we were, a little bit different. And our elevation, we had to hold 9.2. It is suggested that our velocity now is 28.5 rather than the 28.50 that we sort of had worked out might be the case. So we're going to apply that. And then we go back and look at that. It is now adjusted to 9.2. It's corrected itself. So that's good. That's how we can use the ballistic, the theoretical data gets applied in the real world, gets adjusted, and now we have accurate data on what we're doing.
What's the range bit for? Enter range.
That's if we wanted to change the distance that we were shooting at.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. So from here, we have the option to go to the chart. Now, chart makes a lot of sense here. This is particularly useful when we're doing some theoretical stuff. So we can look in here, and now this is where every 50 meters we're going to get our drop, we're going to get our wind, we're going to get our velocity and our energy. So we can look through there and we can see how much. So if we're shooting at 800 and then 900 and then 1,000, we have it all listed here. Now, if you remember back in the settings up here, we could change that. We've got it currently set to 50 meters. We could change it down to 25 if we wanted a little bit more to be able to break down, because let's say we are spotlighting with this rifle. And so the ability to know what's happening at 150, 175, 200 out to say 400, we can see exactly what's happening. Right?
Cheat sheet.
It is. And we know that it's working because we've used a distance that's 1,000 meters is a good distance out. The furthest we can comfortably get to is where we want to sort of do that correction. And if that's 300 meters, at 300 meters. The further we can go out, the better that data is going to be. But this gives us the ability to see all this, which is really, really useful. The other thing here, you see this little orange button here with the arrow. If we click on that, we can export this out to a photo on our phone, so we can have it saved as data. If we do that, for example, we will see that now in my photos, I have all the data there in an image on my phone that I don't have to go into the app to.
So if you're shooting with a mate and he's got the same rifle,
Yep.
same everything,
You might have,
down to the same ammo.
let's say everything lined up perfectly or pretty close, the data's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be ballpark at least. We can also export for a watch. So if you've got an Apple Watch, you may see that now I've got I've got a data.
Some of us are visually impaired. We haven't noticed lately.
It's all right.
Expect some.
I've got some scopes if it helps. And so you could, if you are on your gun there, you can lift your wrist up and say, oh, yep, that's where it is, because obviously this is going to be right where you are. The other option there is export as CSV. So let's say you wanted to put this, if you're a data person, you wanted to put this into an Excel spreadsheet and look at all the numbers and crunch them and draw graphs and do comparisons. This gets the data out of this for you to then do whatever you like to it. All right. So there's a few options of being able to get this out, or just on here. So the charts are great, the heads-up display is great. But for some type of shooting, for different competitions, it's got an option here called comp. All right, we're going to go into comp. We're going to remove everything that was in there before. And let's say we've arrived at the range, or we've arrived at a mate's place. And we're just going to set these all to 0 for the time being. And let's say that in the paddock, there's a target out there at 220 meters. So we type that into the range here and we click add target. It's got another one at 360. So we're going to add that one in there. And there's another one at 480 meters, right? Add that. So gone out in the paddock, there's 3 targets out there. We've added them all in here. You'll now see that we've got all 3 of those listed down here. We've built ourselves a range card. So over the course of the day, we could, oh yeah, I'm shooting that one, shooting that one, shooting that one. That's good, but they're all different targets. If we go down to the edit button down here, oh, sorry, you'll see here, it'll tell you how much to hold, how much wind, how much to hold, how much to wind. And this is all live. So if you change your wind, let's change our direction. So we shoot, say 90 degrees. You see that these have all now changed for your wind. But maybe that's not detailed enough. So if you hit edit, you can put in that this first target is a rabbit. If I could spell rabbit, we'd be doing great. And then this second one is a fox. And then this third one is a big square target out the back, all right? And let's say we got one of them wrong. We can swap the targets around so they can be in the order that you want them to be in. All right. We can now save that. And now, oh yeah, someone's, oh, what's the distance of that rabbit at? Oh, it's 220 meters. We've got a reference. We've got it easy to get with. Again, we have all the export options, photos, watch, that. eDope is another export in this. eDope's a little card that you can put on your gun that'll show you data. It's a digital device, but it uses that same thing that those e-readers, Kindles use. That same.
Oh yeah, just a range.
Just a range card. Yeah, but it's a digital one. Yeah, exactly right. So this can be a really, really useful way to be able to present your data and use that. You can then save that if you wanted to. We've got shooting ranges. Again, we can set up folders. So let's go into a demo and we shall save it into the demo folder. So we're going to go, let's go, Aaron was here before. We'll call this Aaron's. No, we're doing well. Aaron's paddock. Cool, that's his place. When we go there again, what we can do, if we close that out, we could go back in. We've rocked up there again. Oh, my apologies. This little folder icon down the bottom. Go in there. We can find the demo ranges. We can bring up Aaron's paddocks, and all that data is back there again.
We check the wind.
Updated. Yep. Yeah. Update with the atmospherics, and we've got new data. Good data.
Target's same.
Absolutely. For PRS shooters, guys who are shooting different stages over the course of the day, you could spend a lot of time entering this data throughout the day. You often get a matchbook the night before, or you get a little bit of downtime between stages. You can go in and you could put in your targets in the order that you're shooting them for a given stage. So you see in here, shooting stages, I've got stage number 2 here that I've set up. I'm going to open that up, and now I can see here's the 4 targets I've got to shoot. And this is the order I am. I could give them names, and now all my data is right there. I could export that to my phone, to my watch, leave it on here, write it down on a data card, whatever it is that you're doing, puts it all there. You could set up all the stages for the match the night before, and then that's an easier day, which means better headspace on the day to do that. And of course, if you go to a range regularly, you can set that up and just bring that up for the given range. But there's another way to do that. There's a fourth option here called map. And this is very useful both for hunting, but also for range. So for example, my home range is up at Monado, so we shall head up there. Oh, it seems to have saved some of them. Let's turf all of that. So we go into the home range, and let's say we go to the middle firing position. We put that little arrow on where we're going to take the shot, just a little bit back from the front, and we press the little person button here. That's the firing position. Now we're going to go over to this area here. There's a target around 200 meters, and it sits on a frame. I can actually see the frame. That's that bit there. But we could just do it at the base of the mount. It's going to be pretty close. And there we press this little target button, and that's going to save a target there. We go out to the next mount. You can see the same frame sitting there, so I'm going to put it on there. Press that one. Go to the next mount. That's my target frame there. And then we'll go out to the 500 meter mark. These are poles sitting here, so I'm going to measure the last pole. And now we have all the distances. So if I click on any of these, it's going to tell me the distance with it. It's going to tell me my target hold and the distance to it, and away we go.
So that's just set purely by GPS, is it?
Correct.
That'll give you elevation and everything, and obviously at wherever you are.
It'll give you your angle and all that sort of gear. It won't give you your angle of fire. It'll give you your firing angle this way, but it won't be able to account for that. But also, one little thing before we move on from this one, because we can use this hunting as well. We've got all this saved, it's really good, but this is not the most easiest way to use this data. So there's another little export button here, the one with the arrow. We hit that, we can export that out to comp, and now that's on our comp screen with all those targets already built in there, ready to roll. It's a good little feature. The other thing with maps is, and I'm just going to choose someone's random property. Let's just say we're going to go to here, right? We could know that we are here currently, or you can press, obviously if we press that button, it's going to show us where we are. But if you're out in the field, you will know where you are. It'll be able to put you there. But we will, let's turf that. So we can say, oh yep, I'm right by this water here. That's where I am. You know where this is going already, don't you? And you can see, okay, yeah, I can see that tree through there, that one tree. I've got something right in front of that. Go on there, hit target, 211 meters. Didn't have a rangefinder, let's go. So it can be really, really useful. So if you're on a property, you could work out, we often sit here shooting, and I need to know where, we obviously be mindful of the road, so we need to know how far that is, how far this is, how far to the fence, etc., etc. And you've got it in here. Not only is it giving you can do that on Google anyway, that's relatively easy to do, but it's giving you shooting related details as well to know what that is, and you can put in the elevation and export that all out to the comp screen, and now you've got your most common sort of areas you shoot on your property doing the same thing.
Does it give you topography?
It does, yeah. So
Because I'm just thinking, if I'm going to shoot that way, I want to make sure that there's a hill.
Absolutely,
on nobody's
absolutely.
property or nobody's house.
Absolutely. So you can also click on this one, you can go to topographic map, and then you will be able to see, let's go somewhere with some more information, but you'll be able to see some elevation and details there. And then you've got one dedicated to roads, so it'll bring out all the roads for you. And then of course you've got your hybrid it will give you various options through there. So lots of options. Obviously, you've got to take a bunch of things into account when you're doing that. But if you're sitting there and you can see the hill behind it, you're just trying to work out where that tree is, you can achieve it on here.
Does this app work on most mobiles, or?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yes, it's a pretty common app to get a hold of.
Is it encrypted?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the Geoballistics guys. Yeah, that one I don't know. So a couple of things we did skip over, which was the offset setup. So I want to take you back through that. We've talked about the heads-up display, the chart, the maps and the comps, the way to get this data. But if we go back to the rifle, there's a couple of things we did skip over, and I think it's worth looking at. So we have elevation offset and windage offset. Now your 0 range and 0 here means we're going to assume that where you're aiming is where you're hitting. Right? It's a fair assumption to make. This is my 0 range.
Yeah.
But let's say you're testing some other ammo in the same gun and you don't want to adjust your scope, but you want to try this ammo out, you want to see how it goes to distance. So let's do just that. I'm going to go into this gun here and I'm going to copy the gun profile. Okay, I'm going to put it back in demo rifle and I'm going to change the name of it. I'm going to do some testing on some 142 Sierra Match Kings, so SMKs. All right, we're going to look up those, change our bullet weight to 142. And there we have the Match King. We've got two options there. We can go for the data from Sierra or the data from Brian Litz. Generally, this is better tested data when it says Litz. It's a gentleman, a ballistician in the US who does a lot of independent testing. So we're going to choose his data. And you'll see it's now pulled everything through, got all the same details of our rifle. But there's a really good chance that when we pull the trigger at 100 meters, it's not going to go exactly where the last one went. Let's say it's going to go about 3 centimeters high, and rather than 3 centimeters to the right, which would be 3, we're going to go 3 centimeters to the left, which would be -3. All right. So that's where our bullet's hitting. Our bullet's hitting consistently 100 meters, 3 centimeters high and 3 centimeters to the left. Cool. We put that in there. Now if we go back to our data, let's go to our heads-up display. We're going to change our range to 100 meters. And you will see, let's turn off any wind, because like magic you can do that. Each of these clicks in our scope, in NEMRAD scope, is going to move it a centimeter at 100 meters. We've got to come down 3 clicks because we're shooting 3 centimeters high, and we've got to come to the right 3 centimeters. Now you knew that already because we'd worked that out at 100 meters. But let's say we're at 879 meters. This number here has those adjustments built into this number. Does that make some sense? So it's adjusting for the offset and then starting you along the way there. So a really, really useful little thing to know. So you can imagine trying different ammo works. You grab a scope, and this scope you use across 2 or 3 guns. You've got it, the gun you use the most, you've got it set up for a 0, bang on that one. You put it on your secondary gun, and you know when you put it on there, you don't want to adjust it because it's all set up for your other scope. But the bullet goes 4 centimeters high and 12 centimeters to the right. Put your offset data in and it will adjust it accordingly. Same with thermals. So if you're switching between thermals and day scope, maybe you set it up perfectly for your thermal, but your thermal, so you have a scope that you're switching the same sort of thing. Your thermal will do it actually internally. The thermals work well because they run multiple profiles because they're digital. But then when you have this other scope that you're swapping in and out, you can use this same setup as well. So it's a very useful little option that a lot of people just skip past. They're like, oh yeah, of course I want it shooting where it's meant to shoot. It also can mean that if you are, let's say you're very limited on time, and you go, I haven't got time to fix my scope up and adjust it, like you just arrived late to a competition, or you've got to go hunting, we're losing light, all that sort of thing. You can take your 1 or 2 or 3 shots. That's where it's shooting, let's go. And away you go. Very, very useful little thing. Now the other thing that we skipped over was these geoballistic overlays. All right. Now the first one is about the point blank range, making the most of that. Now if you don't familiar with that, that's the idea that you have a vital zone. Actually, I think it's got a really good image on here. You've got a vital zone of your game that is, in this instance, 12 inches. All right, it's pretty large. And if you are aiming in the center, if you know the trajectory of the bullet, you can set it up in a way that you never go beyond the 12 inches above it or below it. So you've got 6 inches either side in this instance, and you make sure that travel will go up and below, and
In those confines.
within those confines, so that even if you are unsure, you get the distance wrong on the game you're shooting, it's still going to be a safe shot. And what it will do is it'll tell you this point here where your limitation is. So if we go back to here, the vital signs, let's say, all right, we'll go close to the 12 inches, the 25 centimeters. Okay, so let's go back. We'll run our 1 hour 40 LDs, and you will see here that at 215 meters, that's where we are 0.6 below. So we are now on the limit of our vital zone on this particular game. All right. So anything within that 210 meters, say, it's dropped. All right. There's a few things we can do to make that as good as possible. You notice here we have to dial up. We zero out at about 75 and 100, and we have to dial up and up and up. We're only using half of the options available to us. We're never going over. We don't have to dial down at all. So if we change our 0 point on our rifle, which in a theoretical instance we can do very quickly on a ballistic solver and learn what's happening. What should we change that to, gentlemen? What do we think?
50.
50? Let's change it to 50. Let's see what happens. We've now added another 17 meters without actually changing anything about what we're doing. We've comfortably got another 17 meters within that arc of fire. All right. You see here now we have to come up for 25, but now we've got a couple of down adjustments. But you notice that our up adjustment at the finish here is different to our down. So we've still got some room and capacity at the top there. So this is the joy of doing something like this, so we can experiment with this without firing a shot and put together a plan to make this hunting rifle as viable as it can. So let's change the 0 range. Let's make it 200. We now have a 267 meter comfortable distance that we are not outside the arc of the vitals. Okay. We've now just added overall another 57 meters to what is a comfortable shot. Now, wind, all the other ethical things that you need to make a decision about, you factor that in, of course. Based on an animal that's got a 25 centimeter vital zone, as long as we do our part, we're hitting within there. We don't have to worry about getting the distance exactly right. Obviously, beyond 260 meters, say 250, even for a bit of a buffer, we need to stop the shot or work out a different drop for it. But to 260 meters, this gun is set up as a point and shoot. And we've worked that out in the last couple of minutes playing with the calculator. We can then go out, now we're going to zero at 200. And we might find, let's do it. We might find with this, let's put our 0, let's be like sneaky, we're going to try and go a little bit further out. It's 230 meter for our 0. How's that going for us? Well, we've got a little bit more. Right, now this is pretty flat shooting rifle. Yeah. We will find a tipping point here where this this grey bar comes back up here. And we've now, usually it's going to be around here. We've topped it out at the top point. So.
When you're coming along and you're going to take your shot for game, how long will it take to do all that on that?
Well, the joy is now we know,
yeah.
Right? So we go out. Yep. And we know that anything within 250 meters, if we're comfortable with the conditions and the shooting position, there's no decision to make. There's no calculations to do. We've gone out with that information. That's right.
Perhaps other than windage.
Windage, absolutely. Yeah, we're making a decision. Okay, I'm comfortable shooting in this wind. That's fine, and I know that this feels like an X wind. Yep. That's this much deviation. We're good. Remembering this vital zone is generally round or close to, so you've got a little bit of leeway on those, and you can run your numbers. The other overlay here is an energy threshold. So let's say we are long range shooting. And we're hunting, we need to make sure that there's enough energy left in this projectile to put down whatever it is that we're putting. Absolutely, very, very critical factor. Now, a common number that we see is 1,000 feet for 1,000 foot pound. Okay. Now, Depends on the game that you're running. So we'll leave that open, but 1,000 foot-pounds is a nice easy number to remember as well. Right. So we shall go here, and you will see that in red we are highlighted where we hit that number and what distance that is. So we know at 733 meters, we're within rounding distance of our minimum requirement that we've set for ourselves. Now you might set yourself as 1200. We might be shooting small game, so it might be 850. That's where you've got to work out what is suitable for what you're doing. But this makes it very apparent and very clear and easy to see where that is. You put your heads up display in, we scroll on down here and you'll see your energy threshold comes in here at a distance as well. We've got one more here, and the velocity threshold is commonly used for your subsonic distance. So where your projectile is going to go subsonic. Now this will vary the speed based on some temperature data, but a common number you see is 1125. All right, and so that way on this in our chart, we will see a yellow. Okay, we're within subsonic. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. And we shall see that at 1332, we've dipped below the subsonic barrier, subject to a few things. That's where data from an app like this can start getting a bit weird. There are apps that deal with the subsonic really well. Remember we did that muzzle correction where we were able to tell it what we were doing. One of the things we want to make sure we're doing when we've only got one point of reference is to do that within subsonic. Because we start getting some weird effects on our projectile, depending on the projectile, in this range and even a little bit before. So I'd want to, in an ideal world, the setup we've talked about here, I'd probably want to shoot it out to 1300 meters to get the best possible real world data I could. Now we might not have that ability, therefore we run with what we got. There are apps that will give you 3 steps. They'll get you to do just inside sub, and then transonic, and then subsonic, which will give you your whole transition into that realm. We won't cover that tonight. That gets a lot more interesting, a lot more technical. But that gives you can set the velocity limit for whatever it is. So it might be a speed thing based on the animals that you're going for, but commonly it's used to highlight where you go into subsonic. There are your 3 overlays, and again on your heads-up display, it will tell you your 3 here, and it will actually list up here whether or not they're being recognised on the setup. Because you may find, I wonder if this will work, you may find we said at 800 that velocity one's dropped out because we're not shooting far enough to engage it. Right, let's drop this back down again, and we get 600 meters. We've had that threshold for energy drop out as well because we're not going far enough to shoot it.
Plenty of energy there. Yeah.
The other one that I was going to touch on for you was this other one in here about the muzzle velocity temperature.
Oh, yeah.
Because your powder will burn differently depending on the temperature that you're in, right? Now we can't turn that on if we're using density altitude because there's not an independent temperature number to work with. So we've got to go back to our atmospherics, switch over to the weather information here with temperature, pressure and relative humidity, because now it can take the temperature out. Yeah. And in here we're just going to get an update on the temperature and all those data, so we make it somewhat meaningful. All right. Now, there's a bit of work to do to make this work. What you are doing is you are going to put in here that if we're going to turn this on, we now have a velocity and a temperature that we achieve that velocity at. So I have some numbers. These are approximations, but not too far off what it could be. We'll come back to our 2,850, and we did that at 25 degrees. It's a fair shooting temperature. And we had a bit of a colder morning, and we did 2,836. That was at 15 degrees. And then for some reason that we won't explore further, we went out on a 45 degree day, and we got a muzzle velocity of 2,880. It's 45. Let's go and see what that does. So currently, what is our temperature currently? Is that going to show me? No, it'll be back over here. So we're currently 16 degrees. We're going to look at, we'll put in a decent, we'll work with 1,000 meters again. We're holding 8.4 mil to get to that distance. Let's go back in and we're going to change that temperature. We're going to go back to that 25 mark. We now only have to go 8.2 mil because we're running a faster velocity. Let's for some reason change it to 45 degrees. We're down to 7.7. So we've now boosted that velocity a fair bit, that we've gotten there with a lot less drop. It's a factor. It's one that not many people do. It's a difficult...
By raising the temperature.
Just by raising the temperature because the burn rate increases.
Yes.
Yeah. It is also not linear. So you notice I put 3 data points in, and you actually, if you look at the numbers, the 45 degree to the 25 is a higher burn ratio than down to 15, because as the hotter it gets, the more this increases. We used to run a test on this for people that we would put really cold ammo in their gun. We'd temperature gauge it as it went into the gun, fire it immediately. Do that with say 3 or 4 rounds, ambient temperature, and then put ammo in a plastic bag in boiling water or hot water, get it up to around 50 degrees, which seems really hot. But many of us have been out in a ute with the ammo sitting on the dash and it warms up, and ammo does get really warm. Sorry?
It's just the pressure variation they found in Afghanistan, doing 50 cal rounds or 338, the pure,
Yep.
in the heat and loading them up and
That's where they
reach out and touch.
got a lot of these long range records there because of the environment you're in. So yeah, certainly it is. I mean, that's both conditions, and then also burn rate plays a factor. Conditions play more of a factor than the burn rate does specifically, but it's an interesting one, and so that's one that you may never use, but if you do choose to experiment with, that's where this is a really fun thing to know how to use, because you can learn so much sitting there with your phone rather than scrolling on TikTok, because I'm sure you gentlemen are using that instead. You can be on here and actually you can be pressing the buttons and learning, what does Coriolis mean for me at the range I shoot at normally? What if I go to a different range, does it play any role here? You can use this to actually answer a whole stack of questions. And back when I was training courses, people would message me and be like, hey, what's happens here? I'm like, have you put it in your calculator? They're like, oh no, I haven't done that, I'll do that. Great. And then they learn not only how to get the answer, but like what the answer is and how to find that answer. Yeah. The other thing that a lot of these apps will do is connect in with a device of some sort. So this one here will connect in with a rangefinder. If I turn this one on, let's see, is it going to be kind to me? There it is. So you see now that I've only got 10 meters or 20 meters in here to play with, but as I range at various positions in here, you'll see this data is updating, right? And so it is pulling, and we can see from here, on this one here, it is going to pull in the angle, the direction, the range, the wind, as it can, and the weather, right? And this can connect into wind meters. But it'll be able to pull as much of this data that it can, and then apply for it into here. So it can be a good combination if that's relevant to you, more so for hunters, because a lot of ranges give you the distance. So that's the one there. But I think we've covered most of the options within this particular app. There are other apps. Let's look up the Hornady one. This has all the same details in it, but it all just looks very different. So to give you a very quick indication, up here is where we press to go to the bullet, and we obviously see all the Hornady bullets as a preference in them. And then if your bullet's not listed, you can go into the calculator there. You can set your shooting angle here, and it will do a similar thing where it works off there. But it's a different interface. The data is very similar. The information you've got to put in is very similar. So where you go into edit your rifle is this edit variables button here. Whoops, if I don't bump something else. And you edit variables, and now you've got these sliders instead for whatever reason. you'll get the same, you get very similar information out of it. You'll be able to achieve, and most of the things that we talked about are going to be the same things or slight different words. Let's see if we can find one on there. So you've got windage offset, which we talked about, and you've got axial form factor, yep. And so this is where we adjust for the, we can actually adjust the coefficient based on the performance of the projectile with this sort of thing. That is one thing I didn't come back to, which we would like to do. This one here that we've been working with, the 140 ELD, sorry, just to finish that out, other apps will have all the same inputs or similar inputs. They might have a couple of other features, missing a few others. It's a matter of you get your head around with one, you can jump into another one, and then you can start working out, oh yeah, that's this, that means that. And then you're like, oh, I like the way it does this. It's just variations on it. A lot of them will have a free version you can go and try, which is a good way to do it. I like Geoballistics because it's pretty easy to enter into and make some sense and make work. I mean, within a couple of minutes we were able to get a solution.
Yeah.
We've now been just tweaking and adjusting and learning more ever since then. In here, we chose one that said G7, which is giving us a number for that projectile. The downside of that is that projectile's ballistic coefficient will actually change based on the velocity it's running at. So if we go back into this, and we go back into those 140s, you see the multi-BC down here. If we click on that one, we now have 3 ballistic coefficients. You'll see 326 was the one that we were given previously, but this recognises that in this velocity band here, it's actually reduced its BC, and in this velocity band, it's reduced that. So now if we were to look at that chart and compare side by side, which is useful when you can export those CSVs if that's what you're into, we would see that this is going to be a more accurate representation of what that bullet's doing, because as it drops in velocity, it's not maximising its efficiency as well, and therefore dropping a little bit more. So if we were shooting at those 1,000-metre distances, because I've got it connected to here, that's going to, let's see if we can turn that one off. And now I went to the range. What do we change? Oh, we've got the muzzle temp data on there as well. But you see that we're now actually holding a little bit more for it. We probably need to adjust. Let's go back to the correct rifle that we were using, and we go 1,000. Oh, it's decided to drop some of the data out because we chose, probably didn't save that coefficient. Yeah, so you see, because I made some changes, it's dropped everything out. All right, which is why we're getting some weird data. Let's throw that in again quickly. 100 meters, 8, muzzle velocity, 20. 825 is what we decided on. Leave all that the same and throw in. And you notice we are at 9.2, which is a little bit more because we were holding about 9 for that same data. So because it's not being as efficient in those, as we drop through that chart here, as we drop through those lower points, it's going to have to come up a little bit more in your adjustment to be able to hit your target. So multiple BCs are going to be more accurate, and then if we went and did our actual shooting, we're probably going to find actually we're probably less of a correction now. It's going to be truer to what it actually was. Very good. I think we've covered everything we need to, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we shall finish that. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in another broadcast soon.